Good evening and welcome to the Unity Connection, brought to you by the Unity Temple in Capitol Hill. That's at 1555 Race Street. That's Race in Colfax. And Unity brings this show to us every Monday night at 8:30. We'd like to tell everyone how much we appreciate you for tuning in. My name is John Christmas. And tonight I'd like to talk about our thoughts and the power of our thoughts and how they group together like high school niches. You remember when you was in high school and you had little groups of people, little cliques, and you hung out with them? Well, that's what our thoughts do. Our thoughts hang out, and they hang out with other thoughts that are like them. And so tonight I want to talk about the power of these thoughts when they join together and join forces. In the New Thought movement, you hear a lot about, not just New Thought, in AA and 12 Steps, any type of self-help program where people are trying to improve the quality of their experience. They usually have something like a daily lesson, or they do some type of affirmations. And we've learned the power, over the last 30 to 40 years, we've learned the power of positive thinking and the power of affirmation. We've learned the power of positive thinking even on a scientific level through psychologists. And I think one of the books that got me really on it first in my teens was a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz. And it was, I'd definitely give it a thumbs up for anybody who likes to read books on self-improvement. But one of the things that that book brought to my attention was that my thoughts have power. My thoughts have power when they are collected together and used as a power force. And I'd like to use the analogy that my girlfriend had sent me today over the email. She had sent me what she subscribes to, this particular thing called the Daily, I think, Motivator. And it was talking about the power of a drop of water that a drop of water has when it joins with other drops of water. The article started off talking about how a drop of water really doesn't have any power to do anything that much, in the sense of if a drop of water hits the top of your car, it's not going to do anything except splatter, or hits the sidewalk, it's going to splatter. But then it went on to say that if that drop of water was to join more drops of water and become a river and then become a flood, then you have the power of something that really can't be stopped. It can turn cars over, it can level houses and wash them away. And one of the ways that this happens is because water, as it joins itself and starts flowing downhill, becomes more powerful. Well, our thoughts are like that. Our thoughts, a lot of people do affirmations and do daily lessons and do positive thinking, and yet they only do it once, and they expect some kind of result. And the truth is our thoughts join together, and as we have more and more thoughts, then that whatever idea those thoughts represent become more and more powerful. So when we're doing these self-help type programs, what we're doing is we're reconditioning our minds, because our minds were conditioned to think one way, and that conditioning happened as we grew up. And what happens is because of the world's conditioning, thought conditioning, we get to a point where our thoughts literally create a experience for us in which we're always lacking, we're always complaining, and whatever conflict we're going through, we'll have little breaks in it where we get to have a good time, where we get to maybe go away for the weekend, then we're back to our conflict when we get done with the weekend. So the point I'm trying to make is that as we start reconditioning ourselves, we have to give ourselves just as many thoughts, and so that we get to the point where we're thinking as more thoughts that are uplifting and expansive than we are thoughts that are cutting us down or making us feel small. This thought power that we have is inherent in us. And we don't see, because of our conditioning, how powerful it is. We don't understand that it's our thoughts that's creating our experience. It's creating our beliefs. It's what is motivating us, what we believe to be true, the pattern of thoughts that we think all day long. And so what people in New Thought, or people who are trying to change their mind, are telling us is that as we gain more and more expansive ideas and thoughts in our mind that we focus on and think about during the day, till we get to the point where that's all we think about, well then that's the point where we literally break through our old conditioning and we go into this new conditioning of more expansive ideas. So when you first start this, it's a little tough because you're saying ideas to yourself that are literally in competition with all the other ideas you're saying during the day. And the most of the thoughts that you have during the day are very involuntary on your part because you're in such a habit of thinking that way. You're in a habit of possibly condemning a lot. I know that that's one of the things that I had to go through in my own reconditioning of my own thinking process, was that I was constantly wanting to condemn. And condemnation is the root of all of our guilt and all of our pain. We don't realize that the pain and conflict from our life comes from guilty thoughts and guilty feelings. And we think that we're under the impression that we don't have guilty thoughts about ourselves, and the guilty thoughts we have about others are very accurate. Not realizing that these guilty thoughts we're having about others couldn't even arise in our mind if we didn't have some uncovered guilt within ourselves. And what's the surprising thing in this whole thought reversal is that we don't think we have any guilt, and yet we do. But in our own conscious life, we possibly can look at ourselves and say, well, I've never have done anything to feel guilty about. I've never done a single thing that was as bad as the people that I, quote, look down upon or that I'm condemning. Not realizing that to condemn in anyone anything could not be there unless there was some guilt and self-condemnation in yourself. But this is going to be on a level that you don't realize. It's going to be on an unconscious level, and it got there through conditioning. And so then that first step is realizing that, well, if I'm condemning, then there must be some guilt in me even though I'm not aware of it, even though it looks like I have such a perfect life and I've been such a wonderful person. But if this new way of thinking that we're moving towards is the truth. Now see, all this of course requires the faith of believing that these ideas are true. And that main idea is I can't see something in someone else that's not in myself already. And if I can't see something in someone else that's not in myself already, and I don't recognize that in myself, then it must be there in my unconscious level if that idea is true. Now, if that idea is true, then the way it got into my unconscious level was through conditioning that I learned as I grew in my abilities to interact with my outside world. You know what I'm talking about? Like the baby learns to get fed by crying. We learn how to get along with our world, and we're conditioned to it so that we know what gets results for us. And a lot of times the things that are getting us results are very negative things. And I know you've noticed that too. In other words, if they used to say the wheel that squeaks the most gets the grease. So you may have learned that if you complain enough, or if you throw a guilt trip on someone, or try to manipulate and control that way, you get a lot of attention. But it's not any attention that makes people really happy to be in your presence, but it does make sure you know that people care about you. Because see, that's the way we're conditioned. We're conditioned in this world that the only thing's important is if people care about us. And we'll go to any extreme to make sure they care about us. And that gets so ingrained in that unconscious conditioning that when we finally grow up, that is the way we live our life. Through that conditioning of using guilt and manipulation and whatever it takes so that we can get people to care about us. Now, we're being asked to take on a whole new way of thinking. We're being asked to start thinking thoughts that say, I really don't want you to care about me. I want you to be inspired by me, and if I inspire you to extend to me, that's wonderful. But I don't really want you to care about me. I don't want you to be concerned about me. That doesn't mean you love me. What that means is that I must have given you some type of impression that I needed to be cared for. For me to give someone an impression that I needed to be cared for, then doesn't it make sense that I would have to give someone the impression that where I'm at and what I have isn't enough? And if we're having an idea that says what I am and what I have isn't enough, then we're going to go do some stuff that's going to be enough for us. And that's why we make our plans. That's why we're doing every single thing we do. Because what we have and are isn't enough. So we have to go get more. We have to go do more. We have to go experience more because what we're experiencing now isn't enough for us. This is also something that was conditioned in us along with instinctual. In other words, the baby knew when it was had only eaten enough to fill up its stomach halfway that it was still hungry, so it wasn't enough. So it needed some more. So we learn that we're in a world where there's never enough. We don't eat enough. We don't have a meal that says, okay, I just got through eating, now I'm full and satisfied for the rest of my life. No, it's not enough. No matter what it is we've experienced, we can't get enough of it. So we learn this conditioning of there's not enough and I need something else. Now from this conditioning, we learn that the one thing that we need the most of, love, affection, attention, energy sent our way, we learn that is something that we have to live, just like we have to have food. We also learn there's not enough, just like we do about food. And so we get conditioned into this state of consciousness with one another where we're constantly trying to get the attention from people around us to validate that we're enough. In which no matter how much attention we get, it never validates that we're enough, ever. So, that's usually when we start wanting to get on a spiritual path, because that conditioning of not enough and trying to get people to fill up that gap that we think is there with their energy towards us, well, that has caused us to not be able to have true relationships with people in which we only give to one another. We're not there to try to get, we're only there giving out of the abundance, because not only are we enough, we have plenty to share. We're enough in our own self, and then just being around us, we're happily willing to share that joy, share that support with those around us. And then you still get that same attention that you always wanted, but it comes from a whole different level. It comes from appreciation and a desire for them to share back with you, because what they are is enough. So when you get people together who are already enough, all they end up doing is sharing, and it's not so much about caring, it's about sharing. You see, we've been wrapped up in the whole caring aspect, and we've totally forgot about the only thing we were ever created to do, and that was sharing. So let's let our sharing replace our caring. And let's ask people to share with us instead of care for us. Because as people share with us, we're going to really see how strong we are. Again, these are thoughts. These are ideas. If we have these ideas all the time, we think like this all the time, then those type ideas become very, very powerful in our lives, and they start moving our lives towards new experiences beyond what we've had so far. And what I've learned is my belief doesn't really change in a solid way until I have an experience that supports this new belief. And in order for me to have an experience that supports this new belief, I'm going to have to concentrate on the ideas and thoughts that's going to bring about that experience. And in the process of having these thoughts and practicing these thoughts and trying to keep these thoughts at the forefront of my mind, then what I do is I automatically create an energy that goes out and changes my world. It's through the faith of the repetition of using these ideas that it goes out into my world, and then it creates for me the experience that I need to have in order for me to have my belief about what I think changed. So this is going to happen in a 3-step process. Number 1, you're going to start using new ideas, if you want to, that give you the power and show you that you are a complete being, thoughts that tell you that you do not lack anything, Thoughts that tell you that a happy outcome in your life is guaranteed in all things and that it's happening perfectly for you and everyone else. Thoughts that always claim responsibility for what you experience. And this is the hardest part, because none of us want to claim responsibility for the stuff that seems to be happening to us in which it doesn't seem like we have any control of. Again, we go back to this unconscious level where this conditioning took place. This is where those experiences had their birth. And even though it looks like you were the victim, even though it looks like you didn't know what was going on, your thought system and the way you believe created that situation for you. And the only thing that's going to change for you is that when you start giving yourself a brand new thought system, a brand new way of looking at life. Now you can, if your life is full of ups and downs, full of you're trying to accomplish a goal and it not working out the way you want to, any of the conflicts that happen in our life, if that's happening to you, then it might be that the way you've been thinking isn't working. Because if your life isn't producing an opportunity for you to continually grow and expand in your self-awareness, catch those words, self-awareness, then whatever you're doing is not working. Now, as you start seeing everything in your life as a reflection, a total and complete reflection of who you are, even the stuff that you can't see that could be a part of you, but go ahead and say in faith that I accept that there's a part of me that way. And I'm going to stop condemning outside myself, judging outside myself. I'm going to start seeing everything outside myself, no matter how it appears, as the call for love that it is. That's one of the great things I like about A Course in Miracles. It talks about the Holy Spirit's interpretation, the way the Holy Spirit interprets. And the Holy Spirit interprets everything as either love, something that's very loving, or something that is calling for love. And that our purpose in life is to share love or try to answer those calls for love when they come to us. Now, as you start practicing answering those calls for love, which are going to come in appearances like possibly they're going to be angry at you or making you responsible for the way they're feeling and projecting on you or others. But still, it's a fear-based call for love. That being's afraid, no different than when you're afraid. Now, the next time that you find yourself allowing your thoughts just to go crazy, remind yourself that the thoughts that are predominant in your mind are the thoughts that are going to produce the experience that you're having. So if you're new on the truth path, if you're new on this new way of thinking, on this path, then it might be that the majority of your day may be spent with thoughts that produce the conflict and the experiences of lack in your life that you're experiencing most of the time. But as you practice thinking differently, as you start realizing that the only thing that's keeping you from receiving all that God has for you is your own unwillingness to receive based on your own idea that you are unworthy. And you may say, no, I don't believe I'm unworthy. But if you see others as unworthy, the way you see others cannot be separated from yourself. This was the beautiful part of all of the great teachers, and especially the master teacher Jesus, in the fact that we start realizing in the golden rule, it's not a hard rule. We treat others as we'd like to be treated. We see others the way we'd like to be seen. And then when Jesus said, what you do to the least of me, you do unto me, he was telling you that the least person here on this earth, the person that you think that you might have an opinion of or an idea that they're unworthy because of something they may have done, however you feel about that person, however you react to them, is how you feel and react to yourself. Because when Jesus said, what you do unto the least of me, you do unto me, he was also telling you that what you do unto the least of you, you do unto yourself. So that allowed my mind to start understanding very quickly that how I feel about others is how I feel about myself. So it only pays for me to feel good about others, even if their behavior is a loud call for love, even if what they're experiencing and how they're making their decisions for their life is totally destructive. I don't want to condemn them from that. I know there's a built-in tolerance for pain that they're going to reach. I know that all of this is part of their design for their highest good on what they need to learn. And I have to learn to hold the light of who they are. They are a very powerful creative being, creating an experience for themselves. And when they've had enough, they can create it otherwise. The best I can do and the best you can do for anybody in your world is not to condemn them at all, but instead try to hold the truth about them in your mind, not interfere with them in their lives, meaning don't fix them, don't try to tell them they need to do this or they need to do that. They don't need to do nothing. They're exactly where they need to be. Instead, demonstrate in your own life that you're a powerful being creating your experience. Once you can realize that you're creating all the hell you're experiencing, then you're also free to start creating the heaven that you are. That is what you were created to do. You were created to create. True creation is anything you do that inspires joy in yourself and others. Everything else is a result of the way you think. If you only had thoughts that were true in your mind, you would have no conflict in your life. But because of the fact that you didn't know any better, and neither did anybody else, we all get conditioned with the thoughts that of who we are, what we're supposed to be doing, what the rules are. We get conditioned. And through that conditioning, we literally throw away what we really are. And then we have to find it again. So be an official reminder. Remind people of their greatness, no matter what their mistakes, because their mistakes were made out of misinformation. You see, when you were conditioned, you weren't conditioned with true information, you were conditioned with wrong information. So you can't really be mad at somebody for making decisions and acting in ways that was based on wrong information. If a child is raised hating a particular race or a particular people or a particular government, then you can't blame that child for that conditioning when they're 30 years old. They got that conditioning. So we have to be able to, as official reminders, remind through both act and deed and words that that's not what they are. The conditioning they got was wrong. Because when you've been conditioned incorrectly, like we all have, you make a lot of decisions and do a lot of things that causes a lot of guilt to build up in you. There's no way that you can have an angry thought about another person and not add to the guilt in your heart. And as I've said so many times on the show, what happens in your lifetime is you get so many opportunities in which you allow your anger to take over. Out of each one, you get another layer of guilt added onto you. As the guilt starts piling up on your life, you have more stuff to be mad about as each year goes by. If you decide that you want to get on a spiritual path, then what happens is you've got to start forgiving all that, plus forgiving what you're adding in the current year. So as you can see, it really doesn't pay to condemn your world, because every time you condemn your world, you add another layer of guilt on yourself. If you add another layer of guilt on yourself, doesn't it make sense that that's going to go right into the cellular level of your body? Doesn't it make sense that that's going to keep the aging process going forward? Doesn't it make sense that all that guilt is going to eventually cause all of your body to stop working? So as you can see, there's not only because it's wonderful to share and forgive and to extend with your world, but it's also beneficial to you personally to start answering those calls for love by reminding those who've been misinformed that they've been misinformed, that they're truly a loving being, that there is nothing that in their power that they can do to take away the reality of unconditional love that they are, the reality of eternal joy that they are, because that's our identity. We forgot that. Now, how these ideas and these thoughts that I've been sharing with you tonight become powerful forces in your life is when that's all you think. When that's all you think, then they become mighty forces. Yes, you're still going to have some moments where you don't feel good. Yes, you're going to have some moments when you're going to be tempted to judge, attack, and condemn. But you're going to realize the cost you pay for that. You're going to realize that is not how you want to feel about yourself, and you know that you're going to know that you can't feel separate about someone else than you do about yourself. And so through this whole process, you're going to, as you get this powerful mindset through these ideas, then this mindset is going to show you how easily those temptations can be left behind. So we don't, the people who believe in thought being creative and that we're responsible for what's happening to us, it's not like our lives all of a sudden never are anything but peaceful. No. But it does mean that when those opportunities to come up where we normally used to condemn or get angry, when they come up and we have those feelings, instead of projecting them out, we catch it and we say, oh, yes, now I see the hatred that I've been hiding behind. Now I'm starting to see what's really been going on in my unconscious. I'm getting an opportunity to see how I was conditioned. I'm getting another opportunity to choose once again how I want to think about what's outside of me. Because what's outside of me, I'm talking about literally in my life. I get up in the day, my senses of my eyes, in my ears, it gets full of all this evidence of what's outside of me called my life. I get up out of my bed, walk into my kitchen, get me some of my coffee, and as all this is happening outside of me, what I'm starting to see is that everything that's happening outside of me is a projection from what I have within me, and not only what I have within me, but what I have within me and I judged against. And I'll get into this in a later program because this is some really deep stuff. What you see in your world is literally everything you didn't like about yourself that you decided to disown and project out and say, that's not me. And yet, the way we keep things is by projecting them out. So that's the way we guarantee to keep our experience. Excuse me. So when you're projecting outward, whether you're condemning someone, seeing something you don't like, or whatever, what you're actually doing is seeing what you didn't like in yourself that you projected outside of yourself and thought you got rid of it because now somebody else is being that person or doing those things or whatever it is that you're condemning. And yet you're really condemning your own self. It was just a part of yourself you didn't want and tried to get rid of. And that's when you move into the idea that the people in your life, what they're telling you, what's coming out of their mouths, are all the thoughts that you tried to get rid of. Is that not deep? The truth is, when we start owning our world, I'm talking about owning your experience. Owning meaning saying, I caused it all. I did it. I'm doing this. I'm the one that is doing it all. I'm the very center of this dream. And everything that I'm seeing is my own creation. When you start telling yourself that, you'll say, I don't believe it, but keep telling yourself that. As you tell yourself that over and over and over again, you'll start seeing your own thought processes that literally create those experiences. Because it's hard to look at a thought system while you're in it. But if you get to the point where you can start seeing how you just had that particular thought or that condemnation, and you could really see that it was something that you was really condemning from yourself, when you start having that thought, then what's happened is you've already stepped out of that old conditioned thought system because you can't look at it while you're in it. So if you're at the point where you're watching yourself having these thoughts, you really already left it and you need to pat yourself on the back. It doesn't mean you're not going to still be tempted to use these thoughts, but if you can look at them from an observation point, then you've already left that thought system and you're in the borderland between the two thought systems because you haven't built this new one up. And during this time in the borderland, you're going to have a little confusion. Everything's going to be disoriented. Your life's going to be doing a lot of shifting. But that's okay. Keep having these new thoughts. Go into this new thought system, leaving the old thought system behind. My name is John Christmas. I teach a class at Unity Temple on Thursday nights at 7 o'clock. Please come in and check it out. It's 1555 Race. Next week, Monday night, 8:30, have a special guest. I'm not going to tell you now. Tune in. Check it out. Love you. Have a good night. Have a good week. Good night.